Honourable Clayton Cosgrove.
Mr Chairman, I've got to say, if you look at the history of this SOP, I'm advised that this particular measure, the illegal measure of Judith Collins, was introduced in the usual Judith Collins slipshod fashion, ironically pre-election. Now, why would this have been rushed through? Judith Collins is a lawyer. This is the woman who will now go, Justice Minister, will go down in history as being outsmarted by a pretty awful criminal who's in Parry Max called Arthur Taylor, if not once, twice. Outsmarted by a prisoner who doesn't have a law degree, doesn't have a legal background, but she got outsmarted by him. God knows how much it cost the taxpayer in court action. And I'd say, just in passing, the anguish of victims who had to watch this individual go out of Parry Max and appear like some sort of latter-day Perry Mason to outsmart the Minister of Justice, appear in court in an arrogant way. I'm sure he was. But here's the point. You now can understand, if you look at the sequencing of this announcement, why it was rushed through, why Judith Collins rejected advice that it required law, because it was all about plain, old-fashioned electioneering politics. Judith Collins, jump up and down, stamp the feet, Shirley Temple grin, let's be tougher than tough and stop these prisoners smoking, and this will be a good election pamphlet to spin out. Who cares about the legality? Who cares about the potential liability to the Crown? Who cares if the Crown is embarrassed by a bad guy residing in the maximum security prison in the country, and the cost to the taxpayer and the anguish? We'll just rush this through because it makes us look tough, was Judith Collins' argument. And then we come to the advice. Now, we know that Crown law advice was proffered to this government. Now, Crown law, I'm not a lawyer, but, Crown law, you've got to assume they know and they advise ministers as to what is legal and what is not legal. They could have advised John Banks, that might have been of assistance to him, but we won't go there. But the question I've got for the Minister is why on earth she won't release said advice. Now, we know it's legally privileged, but presumably the advice simply says you need legislation, the national government requires legislation to do this properly, to make it offence, to make it illegal, to implement the policy. Or you don't require a law, you can do it by fiat or royal announcement in the sort of slipshod Judith Collins fashion. Now, why would you keep that advice privileged? Well, there's only one reason. There is only one reason, because there's no commercial sensitivity. The only sensitivity is the embarrassment to this government, that minister in the chair who, I'll give her this, she's the sort of, person with the shovel behind the elephant, having to clean it all up. The person who is most embarrassed, the person who's most embarrassed by that advice will be Judith Collins, who hasn't even taken a call on this. So I just simply ask the Minister this. Why won't she release that advice, which probably is maybe a paragraph long, that says you need law to do this, legislation to do it, or you won't, or you don't? The reason is because it would verify what we're saying, the slipshod. Maybe if Stephen Joyce had been in charge, it might have been okay. He might have been able to fix this. Maybe he should be sitting in the seat, taking another portfolio to clean up yet another mess where a reasonably despicable character, Arthur Taylor from Parry Max, managed to outsmart the Justice and Corrections Minister and the entire National Party government. The entire National Party government. So I just simply ask the Minister this. If she won't release the advice from Crown law, will she advise us why? Because there is no good reason at all why she should not release that advice, unless it is simply to protect her honour, the honour of a government, and protect those ministers from embarrassment, especially Judith Collins. Because Judith Collins is going to have a hard job crushing this one and bunging it under the carpet. So here we are passing retrospective legislation in the dead of night, with an SOP that was dropped on the table yesterday with no consultation as usual. Well, I just say to the government, be it on your own head. You've stuffed it up yet again. You've been outsmarted by a prisoner from Parry Max. It looks stupid. It looks amateurish. It looks awful. And the responsibility is sheeted home directly to that crowd across the aisle. But I say, colleagues, will they ever learn? Will they ever learn to do things properly, through a process, through consultation, through taking advice? I doubt it.
I call the Honourable Member Asanati Lole Taylor.